So I started shooting some national tournaments when I was, I want to say 18. I had some early failure in that. I remember locally feeling like I was a pretty good shooter, winning a bunch of tournaments locally. I shot in adult classes when I was 17 and really won a lot of stuff locally. But then I decided to go, I heard about national tournaments like ASA, so I went to an ASA tournament thinking I was going to do pretty good, and I absolutely just got pummeled. I found out that I wasn't nearly as good as I thought I was, and there were some kids there that could just flat out shoot. Run into Danny Evans, that's where I met Danny and started becoming really good friends with him. And from there, you know, just watching some of the professionals that were there and how they shot and trying to figure out how to mimic that form that I liked from one shooter to the next. I'd go home and work on it, and ended up transitioning my season as a young adult shooter. I shot 1 year young adult. I won the ASA Classic, the IBO World, and the last ASA Tour Tournament of the year. So I had a few wins, transitioned into adult class the next year, won like 5 out of 8 tournaments that year in adult. Then I went into semi-pro, won shooter of the year in semi-pro, and some other tournaments, and just slowly progressed, you know, over a 3-year period to eventually turn professional in 2004. And that choice was pushed just because of the success that I had. I had no other choice but to really go into a professional class, which is what I'd recommend amateurs that are you know, coming up through the ranks wondering when they should turn pro. Is I would say try to win into the class, like be pushed out of the other classes, and that way when you get into this class, it's going to test everything you have from a skill standpoint, and you absolutely have to know that you're ready. And the only way I think to truly know that you're ready is to be pushed into the class, because there's nowhere else for you to be but right there. So when I started shooting, things were a little different. We shot at some different locations. I started in ASA and IBO, but a lot of the stuff that's different has just changed, I guess, with technology. You know, we have a lot of social media stuff now. We have more cameras and stuff that are out there, but the game's the same. There's a few differences. This tournament seems very similar than what it's always been. Vegas here. The 3D side, I think, has grown from where I was at, but it was always pretty successful. So a lot of it hasn't changed, and I think that's a good thing. The changes that have been made, I think, are also a good thing. And True Ball's been there the whole step of the way, and AXCEL was too once they came onto the scene. From the beginning, I remember them always supporting every sport or every side of archery, from indoor to field to world archery to ASA, IBO, 3D, indoor. It didn't matter. They were always a supporting role behind the organizations themselves and the shooters that compete there. So I'm really, really happy to be a part of that, and you know, I've always just appreciated how much they've done for the people and the organization. So I got started in archery when I was, I want to say 13 or 14 was when I got my first bow. I shot fingers with an old compound. Got into it for hunting. A relative of mine, a cousin of mine, took me out hunting. I just enjoyed hunting and wanted to spend more time out in the woods, and archery was the longest season. Really allowed me to do that, so that's kind of how I got started. I never really took it seriously though, until I was probably 17, and that's when I started getting into target archery. A friend of mine and a local friend of mine, him and his dad, Randy Mara and Robbie Mara, actually invited me to go to a local 3D tournament, and I went to that and just loved it. Like, fell in love with 3D archery immediately, and then from there, every weekend, we all kind of went and shot 3D tournaments, and never looked back, really. So when I first got started, I shot for a local archery club, or archery shop, Pikes Peak Archery. Denny Dreyer owned that. He's a pretty knowledgeable guy. Was able to kind of get me going, point me in the right direction with equipment, introduced me to programs that have helped over the years, like Archer's Advantage and stuff that kind of taught me about arrow spines and how it effects, tunes of bows, etc. And then gave me a place to practice. Where I live in Wisconsin, it's winter. I feel like 13 months out of the year, and so having an indoor shop that's within an hour of the house was pretty important, and gave me a place to practice. So I use the AXCEL Achieve XP, the UHM version, compound version. I love that sight. It's a very rigid bar. It's repeatable. I like everything from the vertical adjustments to the windage adjustments. It's just a real positive, distinct clicks. Never had one fail me. I mean, I've used the AXCEL product since they've launched, and they've continued to get better and better and better and better every year. I have no doubt they're going to continue to, expand on their success, and it was just a easy transition for me into AXCEL products when they launched, because I've shot for true ball for years and years, and I use the HT, which is a hinge style in here for when I'm shooting indoor, and I use the GOAT a lot of times when I shoot outside for 3D. I prefer button. And I've shot true ball since the beginning of my career. They were the first sponsor I got as in young adult. So almost when true ball launched is when I started shooting true ball, and I've been with them ever since from the beginning. So just love the people, love the company, love what they stand for, love who they are, and I've always loved their support for the sport.